I'm very also, as you can see, I just say what's on my mind. It's a very open evening. And as a result, I also wanted to extend that to lots of you because I get the chance to speak to lots of incredible individuals on my podcast show, which is called Lost and Searching, where we talk to lots of different guests from lots of different backgrounds to understand when they have been lost in life. When they found the answers, what have those answers been? And how do they go about making the world a better place through that? And sometimes that gets really specific into business because that's where a lot of my background is and that's where our guest's background today is. So that's what we're going to be doing is we're going to be getting really, really, really specific into your experience, Alex. And because this is live recorded, that means you'll get to ask questions, which never gets to happen. This is the first time I brought this live, which is really, really cool. So what context do people need to know about you? What is your story? Who would you say you are?
Yeah. Seven asked me this before. He's like, I want to ask you about your life story. And it's quite a daunting question. So I grew up in a sports-heavy family. So both parents my dad was chairman of the rugby club, my mum was big into badminton, so you can imagine what that was like for me growing up. There was no fun, relaxed games. It was competition at every dinner table. And that led me into playing quite a high level of rugby and water polo, which are two sports you wouldn't usually put together. I got a major injury when I was 14, couldn't run. Started training, jumped into a swimming pool, and then had an unbelievable coach train our team to become national champions under 16s and under 18s. And I think that, for context, is what drives me, especially for what I do now, and that kind of inner purpose is we achieved something which people didn't expect. We were like the underdog story in that scenario. And that's why I love startups and hearing people's stories tonight, because you're often fighting against the big behemoth who has all the resource and all the money and the capital. And I think with my career history, being Social Chain and THG and companies that have scaled successfully, with the right team, the right standards, the right principles, the right shared mission, you can achieve extraordinary things. So fast forward, I went into university, I followed the traditional path, get onto the corporate ladder, did a 2-year graduate scheme. And I chose Virgin because I thought it's going to be entrepreneurial, Richard Branson. And it turns out the year before they'd acquired NTL and Telewest, and it was very, very corporate. So I did 2 years there. And then one of my friends was starting a company in social media. So I went back home, moved back to Manchester. And I said to my parents, I'm dropping out my graduate scheme, just done a 4-year degree and a 2-year graduate scheme to start a business in the internet, which they both didn't understand. My mum's a teacher, and social media, which they weren't on. So they were like, what are you doing? Whereas everybody knew Virgin, everyone knew this successful career path. So I took a big risk, but I didn't have any responsibilities, no kids, no family, no house. And that was the best decision I made. That was in 2014, 2015. And that was with, a lot of you will know Steven Bartlett now. Obviously back then it wasn't the case. We were a small team, a shared office space in one small room, smaller than this room in Manchester, one desk, other companies. And my role, or what I was tasked with, was how can we get more sales, more revenue? And at the time, they'd brought together everybody who built a big social community. So we had about 5-6 million followers across Twitter, Instagram. And what I knew best back then, obviously from a sports background, was sport. So I contacted one of my friends, ran one of the biggest football conferences called SoccerX. Anyone heard of SoccerX? Yeah, been to SoccerX? But it was in Manchester in 2015 in the September. So the reason why I joined was I believed obviously in Steve, Dom, Hev, the team, but also I wanted to do something a bit different. It tied into my background in kind of like the underdog story. And what I saw was an article which Hev had shared me, which had, we are the kids that control what all the other kids think about, because we had big social audience at the time. So then I thought, well, if we go to a sports conference, then we can showcase how we can make anything go viral within that kind of old school traditional landscape. They had FIFA there, old school chairmans. And so the team came up with an idea to, on the Sunday night before Steve spoke on the Monday, to create a fictionary football player called Rex Secco, which is an anagram of SoccerX. We made him 16 years old. And any Arsenal fans? He was an Arsenal...
Awkward.
Yeah. It was kind of good there's no Arsenal fans. They hadn't bought anyone in that summer transfer window, so we made him £36 million for the 16-year-old wonder kid. And we had one GIF and one video. Talked about it on Sunday night, started trending worldwide, globally. Monday, it's on Sky Sports News. Piers Morgan's talking about him. Monday afternoon, Steve goes on stage, and there is like hundreds of thousands of tweets about Rex Echo asking like, who is this wonder kid? And we go on stage and show the video of us creating like the day before, and everyone's like, who are these kids? We were like 22, 23, 24 at the time. And that, I think, is a great way to think about your company, is how can you get the attention of, in our case, they were our ideal client personas, but it was in a way that was remarkable, entertaining, humorous, and it got across our personality, that we were willing to take risks, push boundaries, and we revealed that he didn't exist the next day on stage. And that was the start of the journey. So off the back of that, bearing in mind we're doing less than small revenue figures at the time. After that, we were flown out to Germany to speak to Adidas, we started working with Nike, Apple. Every major football club wanted to speak to us for product launches, play releases. And that all came from that one story, that one activation which we did. And it was called a talk trigger. So anything that somebody else can tell that story, like now I've told you that story, you could probably tell someone else, oh my God, you should hear, look at this 16-year-old kid they made up, didn't even exist, went viral across the internet. And that got us in rooms. Then we had to back up with our ability. So yeah, so that was 2015. Then 2016, we expanded. We got to about 100 people. So quick growth, quick scaling, started working with some major brands. And then 2017, we took investment, went to where our investors were in Germany, opened an office there, and opened an office in America within 12 months, which was a bad idea, doing it at the same time, almost simultaneously, because it split culture, because each leader's focus was on a different market. So for expansion, I would definitely try and take someone from your core team who gets your culture into that region, whereas we didn't do that for the Germany play. But when we did it for America, we took someone from the team, it worked way better because they understand the DNA of your company. And then 2019, Steve wanted to focus on the podcast. Don wanted to do other things. So we all exited. I then went on to a different stage of company, which was the Hook Group. So they owned My Protein, looked fantastic. And we went on a journey from about 5,000 people, so much bigger, to 10,000 within like 18 months. IPO'd 2020. So kind of seen both ends of the spectrum. And then since then, I've been advising other CEOs, founders on how you scale, how you build high performance, especially in your team, culture, and hopefully we'll get into some of that.
You will.
Today.
You mentioned in so many different words your risk appetite.
Yeah.
What do you think makes you the kind of person that would drop out of that graduate scheme, leave behind what seems like 6 years of pathway to go and do this thing that you don't know if it's going to work, you don't even know if you're going to make any money, let alone if it's going to become what it was? What do you think made you that kind of person?
We talk about this regularly. It's like the delusional naivety and self-belief that you need to break down barriers, especially when you're building something which hasn't been done before. And for me, that came from the water polo story. So we went from, I'd never played water polo before when I was 13, to 2 years later, we're national champions. And I think that about anything in life. If you are consistent for an elongated period of time, you can become the best in the world. I don't know if anyone saw Mr. Beast's post this week. Anyone see it? No. Yeah, he scheduled a post from 2015 when he had 8,000 followers for 10 years' time to go live on his social media channels. And in there, he's talking about, I want a couple of things, and one of them was to get 1 million followers for him to be a success. He's now got 433 million followers. He's one of the I think 10 people that are self-made billionaires in his age category. So, and that's 10 years' time. That's only a decade. So that's when I thought, when I was, there was lots of different reasons, but I was thinking, I don't enjoy what I'm doing, number one. You need energy and passion, and I wasn't getting that from the corporate world. Number two, I didn't think I could be the best in the world at what I was doing. It was like telecoms. And I think that's linked to energy. So it's like, am I enjoying it? Can I be the best in the world? And the third one is, can it make money for the lifestyle that I want? Which often is a dirty word and people don't think about. Whereas that doesn't mean you have to have a Ferrari and Lamborghini. But where do you want to live? What country? Who do you want to be around you? What area of the city you want to be in? And reverse engineering backwards and the kind of freedom and flexibility in projects wasn't tied to Virgin. It was definitely more aligned to startup.
There's a self-admission here of this isn't right for me. Let me go do something that I think is more right for me. And when you say, use Mr. Beast as an example, a decade, for some people, they've been trying for a decade and feel like they've gotten nowhere.
Yeah.
And maybe the obvious thing when you say that out loud is, well, then you need to pivot or something, right? But there's a humility to that wasn't working. And then the task of what will work. Yeah. How do I know what is right for me?
Yeah. And you see it with most successful entrepreneurs. They'll see something not working, especially when you hear Zuckerberg speak. Because his emotional intelligence, I sometimes think, is not as developed. He'll think about it as like a rational problem, and he'll go, that's not working, like the glasses didn't work on the recent release. We need to then fix that problem for it to work better. And I love Dave Brailsford, marginal gains theory. Has anyone seen that? So basically the concept is find your baseline metrics. So say you want to go faster, say you want to make more money, whatever the metrics are, and then look at the systems which are generating that outcome. And then every week try and make a 1% improvement on the system. Don't focus on the goal or the outcome, focus on the input on the system. And the same kind of thing for people that are successful. They don't see it as a failure. They see that, right, that's a learning. And how can I feed that learning back into something that's going to work? And we've had that in all the startups. Wise, where I've been at for the last 4 years, Social Chain, the Hook Group, they were, the senior teams and the CEOs I've worked with and founders have been obsessive about that feedback loop and increasing the speed of the feedback loop. So when I was at the Hook Group, Matt Moulding, who's the founder, we would get an email every hour about sales in each geographical location and each part of the business.
You specifically or the whole company?
Just the leadership team.
Okay, fine.
Yeah. And in there, he would then call out certain areas in front of everybody.
Every hour?
Which has its pros and cons, obviously, because psychological safety will decrease, but then it increased the urgency and the bias to action and the feedback loops and the fact that he cared enough, as it was a huge company, billions of dollars in revenue, but there was something off here which he'd spotted, and he wanted everyone else to have that same care, attention to detail. So I think those combined are what can help any company perform at a high level.
And what does one do if they realize something isn't working, right? Because what you've just described is, okay, here's the really logical process, as you said. But often it's human beings make decisions emotionally and we justify them rationally. So no matter how logical of a person you are, even Mark Zuckerberg, he's got some emotional something going on that is making him want to logically pivot. And so the emotion is so often driving us, but there might be a humility to say, am I ready for this? Or some kind of emotional process or mental health process someone needs to go through to admit where they are and then pivot. What has worked for the people you've worked with? Because you're helping scale to so many people. You'll have seen challenges arise in companies, really good leaders and leaders or leadership team members who don't have that emotional intelligence. What do you think someone really needs to do to look within so that they can build that business?
So the sunk cost fallacy. Has everyone heard of that? It's the theory that if we put time, investment, resources, money into something, we are less likely to want to give that up. So, and I've experienced that, especially when it's money or if it's your time or if you've launched a new product or a new service and you have personally invested in it, you don't want to let that go. The best way I've got now on my phone is when I feel that emotion, like you're saying, because it is emotion driven, I will then try and get that out of my brain as quickly as possible onto paper. And I put two things. Because the reason why I do this is because in psychology you have the red part of the brain, the emotional cortex, which is 5 times more powerful than the blue part, the rational. And my favourite rugby player when I was growing up was Dan Carter, New Zealand All Blacks. And he was a fight, flight, or freeze. He would freeze when I read his autobiography when he was under high stress and pressure. His other person in the team, Mar Nonu, was a huge centre, and he would, when he was put under pressure, he would go into fight mode, and then he would punch someone, get sent off, which both of those types of personalities was detrimental to the team. And Steve Peters, who wrote The Chimp Paradox, some of you might have read, he said the quickest way for you to get from your red, emotional, not great decision-making part of your brain back into your rational is to ask yourself a question. So if anyone saw Dan in that situation, you'll see it on some of the old tape, they'll ask him a question because it forces him to think, like, where are we going to put the ball next? Who are you going to tackle next? So it forces you to go back into rational. So I'll try and get it down from my mind, which is often going 2, 3, 4 things ahead. I don't want to let go of this. And I'll write down 2 or 3 questions to analyze, is this me, my ego, my emotional belief system that's holding on to this? And then I'll often ask, especially if you've got a leadership team around you, or if you've got a co-founder, get them to ask you a question based on the rationale or the data, which is super hard to do. Like you say, it's not an easy process. But that understanding of the brain helped me then help myself be more self-aware of it, which I think is the biggest challenge.
It's so important because so many folks in this room and who will be listening to this will have this delusion that you mentioned, and this healthy delusion. There's a word that I love. I found out very recently. We're all familiar with the word paranoia, which is the delusional belief that something is out to get you or the world is out against you. But there's the opposite of that, which is pronoia, which is the delusional belief that the world is conspiring in your favor. And many of us unconsciously have that, and because it's unconscious, we then get into this space where we're really emotionally attached. And you've described this interesting dichotomy where you've got to hold space for rationality while holding space for healthy delusion, which is entirely emotional. And it's a really tough balance.
And also from a business commercial perspective, what is the data telling you about what the customer wants? Because ultimately we're building a business to help somebody, whether that's a charity, a commercial entity. So I always think about what is the time to somebody telling somebody else about the company. So referrals, word of mouth, because word of mouth is one of the most powerful things. And if you're not getting any referrals, that's a sign for me that something isn't, the positioning or the value proposition isn't right. There's something off because somebody else doesn't want to vouch for you, advocate for you once they've received the value of your product or service. So that's a big thing I always look for is the time to share, the time to pass on that information.
And what do you do about that? Like, if you're not getting the referrals, does that mean you're just shit at what you do? Or like, how do you interpret that?
I think about the dream outcome. I was just telling someone before, when you're trying to position your company, think about 2 things. The dream outcome that somebody wants. So it could be 6-pack abs on a beach for summer because you want to look great. Or the big, urgent, hard problem, which is taking a lot of their time and resource and energy, which they need help with, like the big painkiller. So what's the dream outcome or the painkiller? That's the main thing. And then second to that, we all have problems, but our perceived likelihood that we can solve that problem based on what we've tried before, other companies that we've helped do us, the current structure or system which we're using to do that, will determine how likely we think you as the company can solve that problem or get them that dream outcome. So they're like the 2 things I always think about. Then to increase the likelihood of them wanting the service, you want to reduce on the bottom the time delay to results. So how quickly can you show someone the value of your offering or your product or service? And then the other side of the equation is the resource and effort which they have to go through themselves to achieve that dream outcome or to solve that problem. And if you can reduce these bottom 2, that's usually what the best companies in the world focus on. The top 2 is all your positioning, your value prop, basically. So dream outcome or big problem, and then go as niche as you can. Rather than saying, I'm going to go after marketeers, say I'm going to go after email marketers who are struggling in Pennsylvania, in New York, because of there's not enough business. So double down on the actual niche, as you only need 1,000 raving fans, what that book says. So double down as much as you can and get that value proposition so clear that you are so confident that you can help them on that transformation that we were talking about before. I'm going to take you from point A to point B. Point A being slightly overweight dad bod, which I was, to 6-pack abs in the summer. If someone said that to me, if they're a PT, the PT option is a lot of effort and resource for me. I've got to go to PT every day. I've got to get up early. The time delay is probably like 3 to 6 months. Or now everyone's taking Ozempic. Time delay very low. Effort and resource very low. Perceived likelihood very high because of all the celebrities I'm seeing. And I get my dream outcome. So just apply that framework to your value proposition and it will help you really double down on the customer and how you can get those signals about if it's worthwhile continuing.
And what do you think, over these last few years especially, advising companies on their growth, what is most commonly stopping people from achieving the success they want to achieve, right?
Yeah.
Let's say you help them set this big, hairy, audacious goal.
Yeah.
I'm really excited by it. Something is getting in the way. Sometimes a pivot doesn't work. Sometimes some of this advice doesn't work. Maybe there's something within each individual that is stopping them or getting in their way. And not everyone is meant to grow a huge business. Some people are meant to grow small businesses or something else. What do you think is most often getting in people's way?
3 core components that are often missing or half built out. Number 1 is clarity in direction. So knowing in 10 years' time, if you go back to that Mr. Beast example, what will the world look like after we've finished delivering our product or service or mission? Super clear on that. So it's either yes, we did it, or no, we didn't. That's number 1, clarity of direction. Ideally have it for 10 years, 3 years, and then this year, what are we going to do? If you ask most companies that are going through that scale-up phase, they might have something, but it's not documented, and there's not an owner for each of those things. And within that clarity of direction, I try and bucket it into 5 things: revenue and profitability, customers and impact, your reputation, your team and culture, and your products and service, like the innovation, what you actually offer. So try and have those 5 core dimensions for the 10-year plan. The thing which also you need to get crystal clear on, I think personally, is the shared mission. Why do we exist? Why are we here? What is the reason why I'm going to get up, stay late, work, spend my life helping to solve this problem in the world? Defining that, articulating that is a really powerful thing to do, because then you can use it for clients who want to get on board with that mission. New hires want to get on board with that mission. As you scale, other people in the company and other offices talk about that mission. It's really, really important to have the shared mission. And then the third is your standards of behavior. Most people will, and especially in large companies, they'll call them values, whereas I much prefer standards of behavior. What are our expectations of how we operate? And bucket these into 5 things too. So your product or service standards, so how that shows up to the world, to the customers, attention to detail, what it feels like, looks like. Your team, so how they operate, communicate, collaborate, talk. Your leadership, how your leadership demonstrates certain values, how they speak to each other. The brand, so the look, feel, design, color palettes, website, the brand, and then finally performance. And performance are kind of the values which most people talk about. So it could be we show up on time. It could be we go the extra mile. It could be we take extreme accountability. You'll hear a lot of those. But if you have those 5 things, how we operate to deliver our service or product, to deliver a great team experience, and then you've got the clarity of direction and the shared mission, I think if you nail those things, whatever goes wrong, you will be successful because you'll pivot in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. Once you have done all the work on yourself, or as much as you can, and you've done the work on these basic foundations, you start wanting to grow team, grow revenue, growth period. What then become the biggest challenges people have to growth? Before we were recording, we were chatting about 4 things specifically, and they're all quite different. So I might give you a lot to think to speak on at once, but I do want to read them out because I think they're all really important. Your commercial model was number 1. Being able to articulate the story, which you started to speak to already. Sourcing the right leads, and most importantly, people, the right people, and being with those people, growing with those people. And if you would change any of that as well.
So I think about 3 things. 1 being you need clients, right? So I bucket that into 3 different areas. 1 being seeds. Has anyone heard of seeds, nets, spears?
Oh, yes, okay. Give us the background.
So seeds are things that you plant, they grow, and a great seed is a partnership. So instead of you putting out cold ads, there might be a partnership with somebody that has your ICP, your ideal customer persona. So what partnership could you create and set up? Another seed could be affiliate marketing. So it's other audiences that are going to push people directly to you. And in there, you also want to think about referrals. So if you're delivering great service or you're helping someone on that transformation, asking them a question, who else needs to see this product, or who else could benefit from the service that I've delivered for you over the last 6 months? That single-handedly, in 3 of the companies I've helped, has probably done 8 figures in revenue. Just that one question, and making sure you identify those moments. So there'll be moments of success when people get a great result. You've helped someone with this, they're speaking on stage, they go and deliver a great speech. That next 24 hours, if you ask them that question, I guarantee they'll probably be more likely to introduce you to 5 people.
Interesting.
Whereas if you ask them
Good
a
to
week
know.
later,
Writing that down. No,
yeah,
I'm kidding.
it's much harder.
Yeah.
So you've got that. So that's the seed. A net is thinking, where do my audience spend time? Which groups, communities do they spend time that I can infiltrate and give value to them, pull them inbound? It's like efficient inbound towards you. Also SEO, LMM, SEO as well, answer engine optimization, AEO now as well, those 2 things as well. Like how can you get people coming to you by producing great thought leadership and content on a regular basis? And then PR also falls in that kind of net bucket where it's pushing out stuff for you to a demographic of marketers or engineers, Engineer Weekly, whatever the publication might be, so you're pulling people in. And then finally is when a lot of people focus, which is outbound. And the reason why I called it spears, it's like hunting. But you want to do spears based on triggers. So there'll be certain trigger moments which you know are perfect for you to then sell on. Someone's just got a funding round. They need to grow, or they need to hire if you're a recruitment company. Someone has just been promoted to CEO. They might need speaking. They're probably almost definitely going to need speaking training. So to document all the trigger moments, and then you can set up alerts on LinkedIn Sales Navigator for when someone gets promoted to CEO, on Google Alerts for when someone gets a funding round. And then you can use a bespoke outreach that doesn't feel like the cold stuff that you see, which shows that you thought about that company and then you've given them value. And so I'd focus on those 3 buckets for scaling your marketing or sales. Then the middle is delivery. And that goes back to the standards of performance that I talked about before, plus SOPs. And it's so boring to talk about standard operating procedures. But it's why McDonald's works pretty much anywhere you go in the world. You get similar service and similar outcome. Has anyone watched The Founder? If not, the film. Yeah, the film's great. When he's like planning out the operation, how this works with this different team. And that's how to think about your company is what is the best way or method for us to deliver world-class service? What does world-class look like? A lot of people never get asked that question. When I interview people, I also ask them that. I say, what could you be the best in the world at? People are like, never been asked that before. But it's like, what could you, if you spend the next 10 years, the next decade, what could you be the best in the world at? And what are the best in the world at currently doing now? Steal some of that, steal like an artist, and then put your flavor on it. And then you start building out, right, this is step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. And you want in there to try and design some talk triggers. Now, a talk trigger is something which encourages social sharing. And you can either get a talk trigger, a speed talk trigger. So if an accountancy returns any call within 5 minutes, that's a speed talk trigger. So if you've got a problem, or a lawyer, what's the Better Call Saul? If you were to reply within 5 minutes, I'm going to call that lawyer over any other lawyer, because if I'm in a jam and I know that they reply in 5 minutes, the speed talk trigger, people will share that story. It could be generosity. So sometimes when you go to the Hilton hotels and they've got like the nice cookies, as you walk in on reception, it's like generosity. They don't have to do that, but then I will talk about that to other people when I go to that hotel. So think about the remarkability of your talk trigger. Why would someone remark about your company to other people, and build that into that operating procedure? So at every stage, when it's like onboarding, when it's offboarding, when you're doing a report, when you're speaking to the client, what are those moments of magic which you can like dust on there? And then the final thing is the team, which I think is probably one of the hardest thing, the most rewarding thing, and the most important thing for you to scale. Because ultimately, when you have a great vision, you need to get people on that journey. And that's where those buckets come in before. You need shared mission, you need clarity of direction, and then the final two, you need earned recognition. So a process where if someone does a great job, somebody else can give them peer-to-peer feedback in a anonymous way. It doesn't always have to be named. People want to feel like they're part of something, that they belong, they feel part of a community. Belonging, and then finally is pay them like Netflix, they pay them like rock stars. So deliver a package which then incentivizes them to go out and deliver that world-class service, so you get the best people. And then there's a whole load of things for hiring, which I always think about, which we can go into. But
before we do, I really would love to, but before we do, if anyone is interested in where they are currently at in comparison, Alex actually just launched a program or an app called Scorecard, which you can actually use by scanning this QR code that's behind us. I emailed this around to everyone a couple of times. It's free to do and to use. It might help, if you haven't done it, to inform some of your questions for those of you that have some questions stewing. So in a few minutes, I'm going to come around for questions. I would love to go into hiring the right people, because so much of what we've been talking about, there's a through line here about the right people, which means you got to be able to find those people and inspire those people and give them the right things to do. So people's so important. How do you hire, find, and inspire the right people?
Number one, always be hiring.
Okay.
Always be hiring. Because we were in a stage early on where we were reactive, and you make a couple of bad hires because you need to, based on the demand, if you're scaling quickly. So number one, always be looking for great people, and tell other people that. So tell your team, tell partners of the company, tell clients that you're looking for great hires. Anyone who's excellent, send them your way. And then the buckets of things that we always look for, I've hired hundreds of people. Number one is intelligence. So most people will start with character, which I think is one of the most important things, but they need intelligence in their field. So if you want to do anything, put a man on the moon, do something record-breaking, if you want to build a big company, I think you need a high base level of intelligence within that domain. The second is energy. It's always like passion, curiosity, energy for their topic. So ask them, what podcasts do they listen to? What do they read on the weekend? What's something, ask them to teach you something about the field. That's usually a great question to kind of test their curiosity and their energy and passion for the topic. Then you want to try and find out how coachable they are. And that's not one which most people talk about, but actually in reality, when you get someone, how well do they take feedback, criticism? How well do they interact with other people on the team, mentor them, or take feedback from them? Coachability. Bias to action. Because if you've got someone that's got high intelligence, come from a big corporate, but their bias to action is slow, that doesn't work in a startup. You need people that there's an idea there, right, I'm going to take ownership of it and I'm going to run with it. And then you need adaptability and resilience. Like you said before, things go wrong regularly. So asking them if something goes, when you ask the question about things going wrong, you want to look for how they take ownership of it. Or do they look to place blame? Not in a negative way, but do they take ownership of their role within that going wrong and what they would have done next time? They're like really good hints that this will be a great hire. So I always look for that. And then for senior hires, has anyone heard of the barrel and ammunition framework? Peter Thiel, so he talks about, you've got, I think there's more than two types, but he said you've got two types of people. You've got ammunition, who are great at doing what the role is, and you've got barrels, like in the old school guns at war, and they'll direct that ammunition in the right place. The more barrels you have, the increased velocity towards your goal you can go. So if you have a high level of ammunition and like one barrel, usually like the founders or the co-founders are a barrel, and then one or two others, you're limited then by how quickly you can grow fast. And so how can you then get more people that are barrels? And I think about that in three different ways. On a ladder, so you have a pyramid. On the bottom, you'll have graduates who are level one, loads of ambition. You tell them to do something, they'll make mistakes, but they'll try and do it. You want to try and get them as quickly to level two, which is you tell them to do something, you give them the instructions, you've got the standard operating procedure, they do it, there's very rarely mistakes. You then want to move, the next level is a level three, which is you tell them a problem, they'll solve it, like a level two would, they'll then build a system and they'll build the SOP so that if that happens again, someone else knows how to do it. Level 4, which I think is a true barrel, is when you don't even have to tell them the problem. They spot the problem, they solve it, they build an SOP and they come to you, Alex, I spotted this, there was a leak in our marketing campaign, I built the new structure on HubSpot, and here's an SOP for the marketing exec to do it. If you get those people, those barrels, give them loads of money and compensation and a severance package. But if you can get, I would say, 5 to 10 of those in your company, it is very unlikely that you will fail.
Speaking of failure,
yeah,
I'm from the States, and you've done a lot of work in the States.
Yeah.
And something I notice about the UK market, the European market, Europe in general, the cultural aspect, is that failure isn't so much of a good thing over here, whereas it can be in the States. It's like, oh, I'm owning my failure. And what I notice that leads to a lot of is self-judgment. If I admit something is going wrong, I'm terrified of judgment. The average, you know what I mean? The average person here. And so a lot of what you're describing, right? Coachability, beautiful word. I did a big breakdown a few years ago of like what a lot of VCs I was speaking to are looking for in the people they invest in. And coachability was one of the top things on there. But like you said, no one talks about it. Coachability means a humility to say, I actually didn't know this thing. It went wrong. I failed. I fucked up. And here's what's going to happen next. But that requires the admitting it first. What do you think one needs to do if they notice within themselves that like fear or defensiveness or judgment? How do we overcome that as individuals, right? If we live in a culture, a family, a company, whatever, that pushes us to be like that, what's the solution?
Okay, great. So one of my old friends said to me, have you ever asked someone in a coffee shop for a free coffee? Has anyone ever done that?
No, I've heard this experiment before though,
And so then I did it, and being confident, thought I'd go and do it. And actually, it forces you to be really embarrassed when you're at Starbucks at the counter and the person's staring at you like, no, it's $5.25 for your own latte. So I would try and engineer more moments like that, which don't have consequence, really, that force you to be outside your comfort zone / embarrassed more. Because there's loads. You can do it in coffee shops, restaurants, like just different scenarios where you can do that. That's number one. Number two, I keep a confidence bank. So I learned this from Dina Asher-Smith, the athlete, and she hadn't won a serious medal, definitely not a gold, until she started working with a psychologist. And what he realized is that when she got to major championships, she was in her own head about all the things which were going to go wrong. The imposter syndrome came out, which we all have. And so he said, well, we'll write down, in all the training sessions we've done, you've beaten the world record, you have eaten a clean diet, you're in the best shape of your life. Write those down every night before you go to bed, and then every day before you wake up, read them. She did that for a period of 3 months, and then she won, I think it was 2016, she won her first gold medal, I think in Tokyo, And I stole that, and I don't write it down because it's not on me all the time. But anytime someone says, like say tonight, or I'm doing a presentation, someone said, that was really useful, or that was a great pitch, or you helped me do X, I'll screenshot it if it's on a WhatsApp or email, and I've got photos in my Apple Photos, which is called Confidence Bank, and there's probably like 200, 300 screenshots now. And then when I go into stressful situations like tonight, like you might have spotted me before, I just go over to the side and I just scroll through a few. Because my mind's going, what if you fuck this up? What if you don't have any value? What if people don't like what you've got to say? You're unprepared, you've had a busy, all this stuff, the negative spiral. And then I go through that and I go, no, actually, you're good at what you do. You're going to be fine. You've done it loads of times before. And I think that as a hack, it's saved me on a load of times. And it, like you say, it then forces you to push yourself out your comfort zone because you know, actually, what's the worst that can happen? And I'm actually not going to be that bad. Hopefully.
I love it.
Yeah.
My favorite version of this is I have a public-facing list of testimonials on my website, right? Because you've got to gather testimonials for your business. It's like, it is just a wall where you scroll, and all the time I'm like, exact same thoughts. What if this isn't very good?
Yeah.
Am I very valuable? And it's like, I've literally got a public facing link of exactly what you just described, but it's the habit. You've got to go read it. And sometimes there's something going on in the back of your head that's like almost stopping you from doing that. Because it knows that the feeling you don't want is going to go away. The part of you is comfortable there.
And then the final thing is mantras. So from sport, I always had different mantras. I'd only put my socks on the certain feet before games. And then in social chain, and I did it a little bit in Wiser, there's a video of an American football team like chanting "We ready." I don't know whether it's like "We ready," do-do, do-do. And it just like builds and builds and builds. And so before any big pitch, I remember the first one we did to Coca-Cola in like 2016, 2017, we worked on it for like 4 weeks. Steve, me, and Ollie, who's the commercial director at the time, all stayed in one room. We didn't have loads of money. It's like 2016. We stayed in one like Holiday Inn in London when we came down from Manchester. And then we just played that on repeat on the morning of the pitch. Went in, delivered the pitch. It went okay. And we got a campaign out of it. We then went into the toilet of Coca-Cola and like started playing the song and like shouting and celebrating. What we didn't realize is like 2 months later, the marketing director was like, everyone saw the video of you. But having that mantra, then for any other pitch we went into, we play that song or we send it to each other. And that just put us into the right mindset. We're going into battle in our heads, but the mantra and having something, a routine, which you do every time, just to give you that little edge, settles your nerves down and gives you that added confidence.
Now, super early on, before you've got very much budget or maybe even any budget, right? Finding the right people, whether it's for those partnerships you mentioned, for those early team members. I mean, Steve and the team found you, right? You knew them somehow. How do you find those people when you don't have the budget to advertise on LinkedIn or whatever, or even pay that high of a salary, maybe even any salary? Maybe you're looking for a co-founder in something new, right? How do you go about on a really small scale finding those right people?
So the PR piece is huge. Okay. So the reason why I joined back then was I obviously knew Heaven and a couple of the guys, but I saw that article and it was on BuzzFeed, front page of BuzzFeed, which was big at the time. So the kids that control what all the other kids think about, working with all these major brands, this new upcoming startup. And I was like, validation, social proof that I could join something which is at the very beginning, but exciting, doing something different in the industry. So that's number one, because you can usually get a narrative or a story out there about your company and paint a picture with one PR article, which that one article got us loads of clients too. So you just need one article written about you. Number two is double down on the mission which you're on, because when you start articulating something which is meaningful, I always think about meaning and memorability. So how memorable will this be to somebody when you say it to them in a conversation, and how meaningful is it? So what impact is it going to have on their life, on the industry? Because people want to work on projects that have great people want to work. I always think great people want to work on impactful projects, progressing the world forward in some way. And that's why you can get people at a lower salary band or get someone to move for that reason. And it was like Steve Jobs hired John Scully from Pepsi back, I can't remember what the date, but I remember the quote in there. He was trying to get him to join for ages, and John Scully was like, no, like at the time they were at Upstart, Pepsi was paying him loads of money, probably on a great severance package. And he turned around and he goes, do you want to sell sugary drinks for the rest of your life, or do you want to come with me and change the world? Mm-hmm. And that quote then went everywhere on every major newspaper, but that was just meaningful. And for him, it connected, and then 2 weeks later, he joined. And then the second part, like memorability, Spotify's got a great one. So when they want someone great to join their company, they would create a playlist. Has anyone ever seen those playlists?
Yeah.
Yeah, where the song basically writes out an email message, but the titles of the song are the words. It's like, hey, Jude, if the person's called Jude, or hey, whoever. And then each song writes out a message. It's like memorable. It shows they care. So think about the things which you can do, which show empathy, and the fact that you want them. They belong in your tribe. They belong on this mission with you because they have certain character traits. So meaning and memorability, I think if you focus on those two things and then get it out there to the world, through PR.
Self-belief must be such a big part of this, right? I was just doing some work with a client earlier today, and self-belief is it sounds like everything. Now, when you outline it like this, right? Because am I going to go create that playlist if I don't fully believe in myself to send that to someone else to show them I care? You know, if I assume they need a bunch of money and I don't have it, then I shrink and right? Like, how do you foster that self-belief? I know you talked about this confidence bank, but maybe even pre-confidence bank or
self-belief and confidence, I think, come down to two things. One is consistency. So because I come from sports, my old coach used to say to me all the time, he's like, what could you do every day for 2 hours a day consistently, even on Sundays, even on Christmas Day? And Michael Phelps talks about that. He trained, I think, for 5 years, every single day, even on Christmas Day for 5 years. Every day, never took a day off. One of the best to ever do it. And if you do that, I was talking to Joe about this before, when you get onto the stage, you have belief because you've put in all of the work and you know that you've put in more work than the competition. And so that coach was the reason why we won that championship, but also why I'm like what I'm like today, because I will outwork most people at most things. And I've just always adopted that. And if you adopt that mindset, I've never struggled with confidence or self-belief because I know I've put in the reps. And it usually, when I've not put in the reps, like because I've got 2 kids now and I've not slept or something's happened, that's when my confidence falters the most because I know to myself that I've not put in the reps. But if you put in the reps consistently for elongated period of time, it is very unlikely that you won't develop self-belief in your abilities, and also you will become really fucking good.
Yeah, you've got to have an outcome from that, though, don't you? Know, it needs to be a rep that gets a tangible outcome that you can see. There's this story that I never remember the name of the person, but really big business and really big on social media, I think in the personal development space. And at some point, they just quit everything. They quit the business, they disappeared from social media. Someone asked them why, and they said, I got really tired of being the person in private that people thought I was in public. And it's effort. It's a lot of effort to constantly be the version of you that is showing up. And if that isn't aligning for you, it's draining as opposed to energizing. There's this consistently being the person that you want to be, or even that you need to be, because those are two different things.
And there's a great build on that where what are the things which you would do if nobody was watching? So it's all well and good doing the things if you're on the spotlight and people are watching you, but I train every day now, and not because I want anyone to watch it or see it, it's because I set myself goals, and having goals in mind for high rocks, fitness, family, work, whatever it may be. I'm doing that because I want to be that type of person. I want to reach those things for me and for the people around me and the companies, etc. And having something where you're accountable to other people and other people rely on you also helps you develop and stay consistent on the path. But if no one relied on you, if no one saw you, what would you do every day? We're on this planet for one life. What's the one thing which lights you up, which gives you energy? If you were to ask yourself that for the last 10 years, there'll be 1 or 2 things which consistently, no matter how hard life has got, that are your like things which you can go back to and you do them and it gives you energy. And even better if someone will pay you for them, or you can turn it into your work or your passion or your career. It doesn't always have to be that way, but having that will also make you, if it's not related to your business or career, it will make you better in this field. But just knowing that and asking yourself that question, I think is important.
I'll ask a couple of quick questions before we move to audience Q&A questions. These ones might get a little more controversial, though, so we'll see. We'll try to keep it quick. You got all these people around you now. You're growing. You found them. Fantastic. People are people. Team conflict arises. People get into fights. Sometimes co-founders break up. Sometimes it's just, you've got 100 people in your team and 2 of them don't like each other or dated the same person or like whatever pops up. How do you handle team conflict as the leader in the situation?
The biggest misconception in high-performing teams is that they're conflict-free. They are the best teams I've been in, because of the standards of behavior which I talked about before, are the ones where the group holds somebody else accountable to a standard which we've all agreed on. The ones where people don't know the standards or the expectations, they're the ones which usually aren't the highest performing that I've been in, or they've just never thought about it, they've never created it. So ask yourself, if you've got a company now, or you've got a co-founder, do you both know, or does your team know, what is expected? What does greatness look like for us in this business? That's like number one. Because when you then argue and have conflict, you then can separate it into two buckets. One is personal feedback, but you want to make it task-orientated. The more personal it is, the less effective it is. Whereas if it's based on their behavioural traits, based on the expectations, it's easy to then give that feedback. I noticed X action, which then had this impact on our team. So I always think about that, number one. And then number two, I grew up in the 90s in Manchester as a Manchester United fan with Alex Ferguson. The most conflict happened in that dressing room. Boots were flown, Beckham got a cut eye, players would fight regularly because they wanted to win. And I think you need that desire, and you need that, it's almost like passion, because people want the North Star so badly. And for us, back then, it was like being the best team, not just winning the league or winning the Champions League. It was how they wanted just to be the best. They wanted to dominate. They wanted to be the best of all time. And so if you're thinking about that and applying that to your business, what is your North Star? Like, what is that thing, whether it's the league being the best, changing the world, changing an industry, that everybody here, we are collectively trying to do, then when conflicts arrives, it's good, because we want to get there. Everyone here wants to get here, and we're not on track currently. The outcomes, the data telling us we're not on track. So what do we then have to do to get there? But if you don't have that, and you don't have the standards of behaviour, then conflict usually goes down the personal route, which then causes issues.
Yes,
so they're like the infrastructure I always think about. You need to install first.
Really interesting. Talking about the principles that you need to instill, one of my favorite sayings is, all conflict is self-conflict. Right? So someone walks up to you on the street and punches you in the face. I don't know. Is that conflict? Well, on its own, no. When you respond, it becomes conflict.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of this kind of personal development, self-awareness we've talked about, that actually, if that's also part of those values, maybe part of those non-negotiables, that you're looking for that in the team, then maybe also conflict is less likely to arise from the ground up. So there's a top-down and a bottom-up approach here that maybe should happen simultaneously.
Yeah, definitely. The self thing's interesting. So Steve Kerr, if anyone's watched the Michael Jordan documentary, Steve Kerr was the one who scored one of the final shots to win the championship. He's now one of the most successful managers, managed Steph Curry, Golden State Warriors. And he has something with his players now called the Zest for Life score. And so every training session, he'll individually ask each player, when he's going around where they're warming up, what's your Zest for Life score today? And it's out of 5. 5 being, I'm amazing, great energy. 4's like, doing okay, need a bit of a push. 3 is not feeling great today. 2 is worrying. 1 is like nearly burnt out, I'm injured, or something like that. And he then they'll just give him a score, and he'll never then ask them in that moment when they're warming up and about to start practice. If someone scores below a 3, he'll then make sure that week that he'll take them to one side and find out why. Is it a family thing that's happened? Is it an injury which you're feeling? Or do you feel burnt out? Is it too much traveling? Are you missing, you just had a newborn baby? But understanding the individual as the coach, I think, and as the CEO and as the founder, is really important. But if you ask someone, how are you doing, especially in the UK, like you're saying about culture, people say, yeah, I'm fine. Yeah. Whereas if you give them a numerical score, it gives them a way to signal and flag to you that they may not be fine, which then gives you the ability to then delve into that.
I love that.
Deeper.
I'm going to steal that.
Yeah, so I try and do that. I'm not great at it, but that is something which has always stuck with me.
It's beautiful. Final super controversial question before we go to Q&A. People are so important. Team is so important. In this age of AI, are they going to remain as important? How important is it going to remain to build a team? Will we need as much of a team anymore? How much do you see human capital is still mattering?
The biggest driver for me in any area of my life has always been the people around. And I'm biased because I come from team sports. So the best experiences I've ever had in my life, bar having kids and get married, just because I'm coming, are when I've won something or achieve something with a team, whether it's in business, whether it was in sport. I don't think you can beat that. And the more we have AI, which I think is a phenomenal tool for us to use, the more you can double down on the community and the team aspect and the people you're doing it with, I think the more you'll get out of life the best moments. And you need AI. It's like anything. Like in any industrial age that's happened, there's always been tech, which has then changed things. But the humans have been the consistent. And if the companies that are over-optimizing for AI and tech, I think, won't last, number one, but also number two, won't be as enjoyable or fulfilling.
Mm-hmm. Okay, very powerful stuff. So we have time for maybe 2 or 3 questions. Let's see how long they take.
Here's one for your confidence bank.
Yeah.
It was a great discussion from you both, and you're really eloquent when you speak, so thank you. I wanted to ask a little bit more about the kind of the talk triggers, particularly the anecdote about Rex Secco.
Yeah.
I think that really works because it's so fun.
Yeah.
You know, you tell that anecdote and people smile. And there's a real sense of fun behind it. How do we, in company culture, in systems, particularly where systems are under pressure, how do we bring that sense of fun to the culture and prioritize that?
So it's interesting when you look at performance, because I research a lot into high performance and especially high performing teams. The ones which are the most successful are the ones which have fun. So when the pressure's high, usually people don't perform to their maximum because they're worried about the outcome. So the more you can reduce the perceived pressure of the outcome, so people don't always focus on the outcome, they focus on the process, the better. And that's where fun comes into it. So at SoChain, for example, we hired a head of happiness before that was like even a thing. Because at that time, we wanted to build a culture where we would want to come to work. Because I'd come from the corporate world, a couple of others had, and it's like, we don't want that. We're like in our 20s, so we had a slide in the office, bar tap, basketball hoop, table tennis, everything you can imagine, which I think is too far that way, because then it's distractions and for focus. But having something where you're, as a group, consistently thinking about how could we make this environment more fun, more engaging, and more suited to where we want to go. So that's like one element. Number two is, what are the capabilities that your company needs to be successful? So say you're putting someone on a different planet, you put someone on Mars, you will then need a certain type of skill set and a certain type of person to be able to do that. So ask yourself, what are the 3 to 5 critical capabilities, I always think, to achieve our mission and reach that vision in the future? And then you then can reverse engineer and go, right, for that type of person, and you can even ask them, what environment gets the best out of them? And it could be silence, it could be co-working, it could be offices, it could be, for example, the San Antonio Spurs redesigned their whole training facility so it's all built out of a certain type of wood. So that increases aerobic respiration, it increases like heart rate, meditation, just because of the design of the office. And they paid millions of pounds to a consultant just to do that, because that then meant more players were in a better headspace to play on game day. And then the final thing about talking about the Rex Secco thing was fun. Not every company is fun, so how do you make a talk trigger that's fun? Think about it in 3 different ways. So inner remarkability, that was a remarkable story about Rex Secco, but take a blender, which is quite boring, blend tech to show the quality of their blenders. This guy with £500 marketing budget, he was the founder, started putting different objects into the blender on YouTube. And if you go on YouTube now, you can see it's so basic when they started out. But you do golf ball, will it blend? And it was called Will It Blend, the series. Then it was like iPhone. Then it was like wedding ring. So then they became known. Like Blender's really boring, but it was like remarkable, that story. So I think any type of company, you can find a remarkability element. That's one. Then number 2 is giving people insider access is also a talk trigger. So if you get exclusive access to an event or knowledge, because people don't always know information about certain industries, people want to seem smarter, cleverer, funnier, better looking to their peer group. So if you give them insider knowledge, that also helps. And the final one is game mechanics. So if you can leverage game mechanics so that there's some type of competition, leaderboard, that encourages people to talk about it. That's another way to increase social currency, we used to call it, but increase people talking about your company, basically.
I'm Andre,
Great to meet you.
founder, fellow Red, and
Great.
my question is all built around burnout.
Yeah.
As a founder, I've been founder for 7 years. I've built 2/3 companies. One of them failed and then recovered as another one. And I've got concerns to the side. And one of the things that I have experienced in is dipping in and out of burnout. It's a conversation that Sam and I had when I was on this podcast last year. My question to you, Alex, is have you experienced burnout yourself? What did it entail? And then with the other founders and business leaders that you've worked with, if they've experienced burnout, how have you worked with them to manage it or to avoid it? And what do you think are the critical factors that founders or anyone that's in a high-performance environment must avoid burnout? Because without our mental health, we cannot execute our business ideas currently.
Yeah, 100%. Great question. I've having experienced burnout. So it was me, Steve, Dom, and a guy called Christian on the Border Social Chain. Dom and me both stopped drinking I stopped drinking in 2018 because we were like sleeping in the office and then everything was around work. Literally anything we talked about, we'd go on holiday together, sleep in the office, parties, nights out, everything was together. And then we'd get to say Friday, start drinking. There's a beer tap in the office, start drinking. And then we'd be drinking all weekend. And then Monday would happen again. And it was just so unhealthy. And then I was letting my health slip, wasn't training. I wasn't doing the fundamentals, which I know I need to perform my best. So I took the decision then to stop drinking. But you asked the question about what can you do and what do I help other founders do? So I call it the wheel of life. So say you're doubling down and you're working on your business and it's your company, you're putting everything into it, you're spending 70, 80 hours a week. If that is your only block, say something goes wrong with that block, that's going to really hurt your mental health because it's like building on one tectonic plate, which if that then goes, then what else you have? You start questioning life. So I've got this, I just do it on Excel, but you can do it on anything. You can build it on Vercel at the minute, where I have health and fitness, number one, and that's like my diet, how often I'm training. I then have business and career or business and company. I then have friends and fun, because we often don't do that. Like, I would realize I never went to a United game for like ages. I was like, I love United. Not at the minute, but I love watching United in person. So it's like, how can I do more? How can I spend more time with friends? Family. So I wouldn't see my mum or my dad or my auntie. So it's like scheduling time in my diary to see them. And then the other thing is finances. Because usually if you're starting a company, you're then not getting paid what you were, or there's pressure, everyone's expecting, but your finances are also pressurized. So then focusing on that, making sure you're getting enough money and stuff to make you and live the life that you want. And so every month I've just got a recurring invite in my diary and I just score it on the Excel, Google Excel. And then I've got an auto conditional formatting so that if it's over 8, it's green, 7 to 5 orange, below 5 red. And then over time you can see trends. And if there's a trend in there, I'll then try and address, if I've gone from an orange to a red or a green to an orange, it's a flag for me. Or the CEO I'm working with, that's a flag. What are the 3 things we can do for this month to change that? And you can't rely on motivation. So say your health and fitness is down, you can't then go, right, I need to go to the gym more. You need to then go, I'm going to book in a session every Monday morning for 2 hours to go to the gym with a friend or with somebody. Or I'm rubbish at cooking. So like when we had 2 under 2, I ballooned up to like 110 kilograms. I'm like 85 now. So I was fat, dad body, because I'd be like at McDonald's and you're not sleeping, you're all over the place. So then I was like, I don't enjoy cooking. I'm getting bigger, so I'm just going to order the meal box service. It's more expensive, Thrive, I'm on now, but Simmer Reach is loads of them. That's the system. So you're not like, I need to eat better. It's like you have a system. My system is I go to the gym regardless every day at 6 a.m. before the kids wake up. So it's then not a choice. I don't have to rely on my motivation. It's just, that's my system. That's my system for the finances, and that's my system for health. And to make sure you've got the right systems, and if the things aren't going right in that vertical, the ones that I talked about, try and adapt the system. Don't focus on the output.
And I also want to add to that scorecard system that you have there, that like monthly check-in. Yeah. Most of us are not good statistically at listening to our bodies. A lot of us we all have the ability to do that.
Yeah.
Most of us don't. We just don't do it. We're doing too many things, and then as a result, our nervous systems aren't used to it. And if you consciously ask yourself those questions and you see the score, okay, that means this week you need more rest.
Yeah.
That means this week you need to say no to more things. A lot of us are really bad at saying no as well.
Yeah.
You know, what's your threshold before you go, this was too much? And then what do you do if you've gotten there?
I stole the energy calendar from Sir Hill Bloom. Don't know if anyone's seen it, heard it, but I'll color coordinate my diary. Green being gives me energy. This gives me energy. I like talking, sharing ideas, speaking, training. It gives me energy. Finances, contracts, red, drains energy. Then you'll have like a grey or orange in my diary, which is okay, I have to do them. Vibe. Doesn't give me energy, doesn't drain my energy, middle. So I colour coordinate it. And so then I go, if I've got a morning of reds, say, sometimes you can't have all greens when you could start a company. So, but say I've got a morning of all reds, I'll try and schedule a green around lunchtime. And if I've not had 2 greens in a row in a day, I'll usually feel terrible. So then I'll look back at the end of the week and go, right, I need to change that. Or I'll look forward to the week coming and I go, right, I need to schedule more greens.
Super helpful.
Yeah, just a really simple thing to do. And sometimes you'll even have, I try to overcomplicate it, but I was like, what generates revenue and what generates energy? But the colour coordination thing didn't work for that as well, so I've stopped kind of doing that. But because you want to work on the things in your diary which are generating money for the business, revenue generating activities or cost saving activities, plus the things which are giving you energy. So if you do those 2 things, usually they're going to be things that you enjoy if they're ticking both those boxes. And usually they'll be living in your zone of genius, like your unique advantage as a founder, like things which only you can do that you can't delegate. And so I try and lean into more of those. Like I have to do this. I can't delegate this to anybody in the team. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I also, it gives me energy, and it might generate revenue. You know, from someone might see it and then inbound. So it ticks those boxes. So try and be doing more of your unfair advantage, living in your zone of genius.
My name is also Alex.
Great name.
So you've given lots of great advice and named lots of famous and successful people from history this evening. It often seems to be true that for every good piece of advice, there is an equally attractive opposite piece of advice. Like, as an example, like obsess over the detail and like perfect is the enemy of the good kind of thing. Yeah. How do you decide whether it's who to listen to in terms of role models or like what great advice to adopt and sort of incorporate into the way that you work?
There's a great coach called Coach Prime. He's, if anyone's watched, there's a documentary on Netflix, phenomenal one, about Dallas Cowboys, 6-part series, and he's in that. He's one of the best players of all time. He won the MLB, which is the baseball championship, and then won the Super Bowl. So like, not many players play both sports at the highest level. And he's got a quote where he talks about, you've got to be careful who we consider role models, because a lot of these people out here are just playing roles. And that quote stuck with me in relation to what you're saying. Is like, who do we follow in order to give us the advice? And so my criteria is really simple. I look at people and listen to people, and it's like, is this person ahead of where I want to be, or has done what I would like to do, number one. And that's a good one when you're taking negative criticism, because usually you'll get most criticism from people that haven't done where you want to go, because it's like an internal belief which they don't believe that you can get there because they couldn't get there, and they'll try and bring you down. So has this person done what or been where I want to go, number one. And number two, do I like it? Is it going to stick with me? Like that stuck with me. He's got great ones. He's like, keep making plays. The scoreboard's not on you. The lights aren't on you. The sales targets aren't where you want to be, but keep making plays. I'm like, I freaking love that. I like play that and repeat. Like when it's difficult, keep making plays. So yeah, do I respect them? And do I want to go where they are? And is it something that's memorable for me? Otherwise, you can take loads of advice, but it needs to turn into a system. Like I said, it needs to then affect your behavior.
I love that. Role versus role models. Yeah. That is so good. Right, we have time for one more quick one at the back.
Hi, my name's Sharon. Just going off the points that you just mentioned, delving into the mental and emotional resilience required of what it takes to be an entrepreneur. how do you deal with self-doubt and doubt from others? And also, what, as a person, do you define as success?
The best one for self-doubt is writing down if you've got an example. So like it could be, I don't think I'm going to go in and win this pitch. That could be like the self-doubt. I'm not going to go in and win this investment. Write down this, answer this question. What if the positive opposite was to be true? How would you then act? I saw that somewhere. It's freaking great. What if the positive opposite of what I'm thinking was to be true? How would you then act? What would be my next move? And that forces you, like I was saying before about the blue brain, red brain, because it's a question, it then forces you to then take an action, even if this was to be true. So that for the self-doubt is one that I don't struggle with it as much as I know a lot of people struggle with it, but that is something which always stuck with me, and I always think about that. And then what was the second part of the question?
It was, as a person, how do you define success?
Me? Achieving extraordinary things with people that I love. Yeah, and that could be, I like helping people do things that they didn't think possible, not just in work, but like for fitness, and I do a lot of fitness things with the community now. And even, I did a bike ride for charity. This guy had never ridden a bike at all, and he rocked up without the cleats or anything, and we're doing a 100-mile bike ride. And it's like, he had to get through, and he was like 18 or 19, but he was doing it for the charity we were raising money for. But I loved that. So each time I was like giving him the motivational quotes, feeding him, didn't bring the food or the gels, but the expression on his face when he finished, and then like hear about the stories when he went back and told us his family, I did that. There's no better feeling. When my kids do it as well. Like my kids are trying to learn basketball at the minute. Like Kobe can't reach the rim. It's like, and then I've got a video on my phone. He's like trying to do it, falling over, but then he does it. He comes in, Dad, I did it. You know, that feeling, that for me is success in whatever realm, business, sport, life, but with people that I care about. Yeah.
Beautiful. Alex, this has been epic, man. So much packed into such a short space of time. I really appreciate you. All of the things you've not just shared with us, but that you go out of your way to share with others in the community in general. You're very much like a pay it forward kind of person. It creates a really, really good vibe, and a vibe that I think sometimes, especially right now, we need more of. Yeah. So I really appreciate you being here with us tonight. I have a closing question I ask everyone who comes on the show. Everyone gets the same question, and this is very much about you. Yeah. The show is called Lost and Searching, and I'd love to know, what is the number one question in your life that you are currently searching for the answer to?
Know that immediately. And if anyone's got any advice, let me know. Is how to be the best dad whilst balancing everything else, because there's no right way. Mm-hmm. You know, you see a lot of success stories from people that didn't have great, loving fathers, but then that made them successful. And then it's like, to your question, what is success? You know, so there's so many elements of that which I'm like wrestling with, searching with. Do I spend every night with them? Is it good that I'm away for things like this and I miss that? You know, what will they look back on in like 20 years and go, I had a great upbringing, we still got a close relationship? Because there's no right or wrong. Mm-hmm.
So what's your answer been to that question so far? What is the most right for you as far as you currently know?
I interviewed the MD of Porsche ages ago, and he said two interesting things. He said, never miss the big moments. Mm-hmm. So I always try and be there for whether it's swim meet or he's doing performance on stage or she's doing something, always be there for the big moments. They won't necessarily always remember all of the moments, but be there for the big moments, big birthdays, be present. And then number two, my dad was great in so many ways, but he was my coach. He was chairman of the rugby club. He didn't share his emotions. He was set high standards, which I think has been great for me. And I was doing that because that's what I learned. Whereas I'm trying to go the other way a bit more, because that guy said to me, he was like, you want to be there when they're in a jam and something's gone wrong and they want to trust you. And if you're not willing, or there's no psychological safety there, then they're not going to come to you. And so I'm trying to do that more. Mm-hmm. It's okay. Whereas I'm wrestling against that because I want to be like, this is the standards. If you want to be great, all the stuff that I'm talking to and working with people on. But he's freaking 6 years old.
Yeah.
And she's 4 years old.
Yeah, I mean, and look, each of them might need their own balance because we're all a little bit different. But the reason why I love having these conversations and why I love having really personal conversations that can be open and can be vulnerable is because I love seeing the person in front of me go through the thinking, because I believe we all have the resources we need within us already. Yeah. And with everything you've shown us tonight about your character, forget all the things you told us, practical, physical, those are great.
Yeah.
I feel like I can see the you that is the dad you want to be already, which is super exciting. I'm super excited for you, man.
Thanks.
So thank you for being here with us tonight. Thank you for being so giving. I appreciate you. Huge round of applause, please. Thank you for Alex.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it, man. That's sick, bro.